Hey, everyone, and welcome back to Young Minds Podcast. We're super excited to have you back. My name is Bo.
And I'm Lindsay. We are here today recording our third episode of the Young Minds Podcast.
And today we're super excited to have Jesse Girth with us and hear his story about what he's doing. He's been awfully busy. So Jesse, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're coming from, and what you're doing these days?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just wanted to say thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here. I'm Jesse. I'm born and raised in Egg Harbor, Washington. And I've been a part of Ywam Youth with a Mission, helping out with, their, passion for seeing young people come to meet the love of Jesus. And I got involved there 2 years ago. And I went through the DTS and loved
tell
it
us
so
what
much.
DTS stands for.
Discipleship Training School.
Yeah.
So the DTS is when you go and you want to learn more about Jesus, and you get to read the Bible, you get to enter into worship and intercession and prayer for nations that you've probably never heard of in your life, and you get to truly understand what it means to be a follower of Christ, not just a Christian, but an actual obedient son, because you meet Jesus in tons of different places, not just church. Discipleship Training School has been the pinnacle of my life, and it has kind of shaped the way for my future in missions.
And how long is that program or that experience?
Yeah, it's 3 months.
Okay, so kind of just
Discipleship
fire
Training
hose.
School is... So it's actually 6 months.
Yeah.
But the lecture phase is 3 months.
Okay.
And then the mission is 3 months.
Is that what you went to Hawaii for?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was in Kona for my DTS for 3 months, learning about Jesus, being, taught all the gospel, how to share the gospel, being equipped with the tools to go to the nations. And then I spent 3 months in Papua New Guinea, telling people there about Jesus, and I loved it so much I went back to staff.
So growing up, has church and a relationship with Jesus always been something you can remember? Was there a moment where it kind of amplified, or, obviously the DTS, I'm imagining, like you said, really amplified it, but was there a moment that you remember growing up where it kind of all started for you?
Short answer, no. I'll get into my testimony a little bit. I did not grow up Christian at all.
Okay.
My parents are not Christian.
Still?
I didn't. Yeah, still.
Okay.
Wow.
I've been trying to reach them recently.
Yeah.
Me too.
I kind of grew up with no Christian influence. I didn't know who Jesus was until a lot later in my life. But I do remember, as a kid, I would still pray. As a kid, I would still believe that God was real. As a kid, I would have these moral things throughout high school and middle school, all the other kids were partying and drinking and, doing drugs. And I'm like, no, it's just not for me. And I didn't have any sort of moral standard because I didn't believe in the Christian God,
Sure.
Let alone anything like a higher power or anything like that. So I didn't have these moral ideologies that a lot of Christians do have, but it was already implanted in me. And I look back on that and I'm like, dang, God was keeping me on a short leash because he knew that I was going to be his one day,
That's awesome.
And then kind of grew up separated from the church community though. I had this preconceived notion that Christians were crazy, and everybody that would invite me to youth or to Young Life or youth groups and stuff like that, I'm like, it's just not for me. I just, I had church hurt without ever going to church, which is kind of hard to explain. But having my family's a little they're interesting. My mom has, been involved with a lot of things that aren't a lot Christian necessarily. And so I grew up with a lot of demonic torment from that. And so all throughout my life, I had this sleep paralysis and everything like that growing up, and all throughout, elementary school, middle school, high school. I was like, it's just normal for me.
Did it occur to you, because there was something that was evil, did you then think, well, maybe there's something that's holy or something that's opposite, light
Yeah.
versus dark?
You would think I would, but they like were so normal to me that I just got used to it.
Sure.
And since I didn't know about the Christian God, Jesus, I didn't know that there was a like totally holy, totally good, totally like light. And like I was living in darkness without like having any sort of gauge on what like the opposites were. So short answer, no.
Yeah. But you grew up understanding that there was a spirit realm.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
So what, I'm imagining that you didn't just go from that straight to a DTS program.
No.
Where was that shift?
Yeah.
Was there someone or something or some place here in town or wherever that kind of started that engine for you?
Yeah. It was a lot of things actually. When I was in freshman year of high school, my mom got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And she was, pronounced like 2 months left to live.
Wow.
And it got me really hard. And I was like, dang, like it hit me with a reality check.
Yeah.
Like if my mom dies, like, that sucks for me. And I like got into this really deep, like dark place. And I think that was one of the lowest moments of my life. And it says like Jesus meets us in our lowest moments. Jesus meets us in our sickness and in our disease. Like he did not come for the righteous, he came for the sick.
Right.
And so there was a night where I was just like, again, praying like, I used to pray, not to like Jesus. I didn't say any like thing. I was just like, God,
Right.
Because I knew there was someone up there.
Yeah.
Like whoever you are, like listen to me. I want my mom to be healed.
Wow.
And in like skipping forward a lot of my testimony, like my mom did eventually get healed, like fully miraculously. She went into the, hospital and the doctors were like, we can't believe it. Like, we don't understand how. The cancer had spread throughout her whole body. And at this moment, it was just gone.
I know how.
Yeah.
So I know how to now. But like, in that moment, I was like, dang, God healed my mom. But I didn't know who this God was. So it kind of just fled my mind. And like all throughout the rest of high school, I was still struggling with insecurity, all sorts of addictions. Like I was still in a low moment because I did not have any sort of like idea on who cured my mom. I just, God did, God's real. Like I knew God was real
Knowledge
after that
without
moment.
a relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So going up throughout high school, it was just hard. And I got into like, I graduated high school, still not knowing anything about Jesus. And I started like really wanting more friends. It was throughout high school where I lost a lot of friends because of my like morality thing, where I was like, these guys are partiers, these guys are alcoholics, like I don't want to hang out with them. So I like immediately like cut off a lot of my friends in high school because I'm like, no, they're not good for me. Like,
That's so crazy. Sorry that you're just
good.
like, you already were set apart. Like that was really, it's cool.
I love looking back like in the darkest moments of my life, knowing that Jesus was there, knowing that he was like kind of guiding me with his shepherd staff, like, like the curve around the neck, like, oh, go this way, I'll go this way. Like, but yeah. And then like after high school, I just really wanted more friends. And I was like, God, you healed my mom. Like you can heal me. So I was just like, God, I want more friends.
Wow.
And immediately he brought people to me. I was like, Jesse, like, bro, there's a worship night coming up. And I'm like, what's a worship night? Like, I knew
which
it was
is kind of a
Christian.
big thing to throw yourself into if you're not used to church experience too.
Yeah. And well, there was a girl also. So I had
that's
feelings for
always
the girl.
helpful.
Yeah. And I was like, all right, well, it wouldn't hurt, to go check out this worship night.
Right.
And so I go and people are like telling me the gospel. I've never heard the gospel before.
Yeah.
People are like, got their hands raised and tongues and, doing backflips practically like throughout the place. And I'm like, what is this, bro? Like, this is a cult. Like, this is weird, and like throughout like being friends with these people, like the girl that I was dating her at this point, she got me a Bible, she got me a devotional. And like I started reading. I started like half and half, like half because I really liked her, but also half because I was like, this is interesting to me.
Right.
And I want to know like something that I've always like, been is like a free thinker. I've never like swayed this way or that way based on what people tell me because I want to do the research. I want to like learn from my own like, experiences and stuff like that. So like this whole idea of like being born Christian and everything, like, I'm like, it's not for me because obviously I never had that. But like, it's so much more meaningful if you have an experience from you and God where you can base your whole faith off of, where it's like, dang, like I did the research and God, you still like showed me your like trueness, your realness,
Wow.
And so it was in that moment where I was like reading my Bible, like memorizing scripture. And I'm like, this is like, I've never heard this before. All the people that invited me to Young Life, I was like, bro, you were just inviting me to come like, eat popsicles and, go on the slip and slide. Like it wasn't the gospel.
Right.
Like, why didn't you tell me this? Like there was times in my life when I was borderline suicidal and I needed this gospel. I needed this comfort in my life. And like, it was up through that it was the summer of July 2022. So this was only 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I got involved in staffing a like Christian summer camp.
Oh, wow.
And they're like, Jesse, you should staff the summer. I'm like, no, I'm not even like, I don't even like Christian or anything. I know like 3 Bible verses. I don't know anything. And they were like, no, it'll be good for you. And so I immediately said yes, because I felt like God was leading me that direction. And it was the best week of my life, other than DTS, obviously.
Sure. Up to that point.
Up to that point. Yeah, up to that point, it was the best week of my life because second night of worship, I had my hands out, and I'm gonna get vulnerable here. I had my eyes closed and they were singing the songs, but I didn't care. I just like, it was just me and God.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, Jesus, if you're real, I just want to surrender everything to you. Because I realize in this moment that everything I do in life based on my own will never be satisfactory. Everything that I do, like if it's not for you, I don't want to live. Because I've seen like your truth in scripture. I've seen like the morality of like the goodness that you like show people and like the, everything that Jesus did.
Right.
Like we don't live like that anymore in this world. We don't, like you see everybody else like in this world, like, they're living for fame, they're living for fortune, like all of that.
Yeah.
I used to want that. But in that moment, I realized that it's futile. Like I think about Ecclesiastes a lot where he's just like, this, futile.
Chasing the wind.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, everything is meaningless unless you have Jesus. So in that moment, I have my hands out in a like prophetic form of surrender or like a posture of surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, Jesus, I just surrender everything to you. Take everything. I put it at the foot of the cross. And I had my eyes closed. I didn't even know what any of it meant. I just like felt like it was right to say it and to give him what he is worthy of. And shift. And I'm literally in like a totally different place.
Yeah.
And I was having an open vision.
Oh, that's awesome.
And Jesus is right in front of me. And I'm in like the streets of Jerusalem or something. There's like old like limestone houses next to me. I'm like looking around and Jesus is standing in front of me in her white robe, like shining in glory. And I have my hands out. I don't walk. I don't move. He walks to me and he puts his hands on top of mine like this. He wasn't holding my hands. He was just like putting his hands on top of mine. And he's looking me dead in the eyes, nowhere else, straight into my soul. He said, Jesse, I'm so proud of you. Everything's going to be okay. I'm so happy that you surrendered today. Like he just kept telling me everything was going to be okay. Everything was going to be okay. And I was bawling at this moment because I realized the King of the universe knew me.
Yeah.
And he wanted to know me and he wanted to, like, he's the one who walked to me. He's the one who like pushed away everything to get to me in my brokenness and my lostness. Like even when I was back when my mom was sick, like when I was crying in my room, not knowing who to pray to, God was right there the entire time. And I'm like under the weight of his glory for the very first time. And I'm just like, Jesus, I give you my life. There's no one else I want to give my life to other than you. And I opened my eyes after feeling like an hour in his presence. But realistically, it was only like probably 20 seconds.
Right. Yeah, the same song's still going.
Same song is still going. I opened my eyes and everybody's laying hands on me and praying for me. And I'm like being moved. Like I'm like being moved by everybody. Like there was like probably, I want to say probably 70 people all turned towards me, praying for me. I'm like, what is this? I'm like bawling, I'm shaking. Like I've never felt this feeling before, this glory, this love, you know? And I'm like, did I just get saved? That's all I could think of. But that night really shifted a lot for me because I started to get conviction for my sin.
Mhm.
I started to like really see the world from a like biblical worldview rather than from my flesh, you know?
Yeah.
And I started to not want the things that I used to want. And I started to really seek God in the quiet place more and start listening to worship songs other than like, you know, Linkin Park or something like that.
Mhm.
Like, you know, sometimes I still listen to Linkin Park,
Sure.
but like worship and like entering into like the courts of heaven with
Mhm.
Jesus because he's already waiting for us.
Yeah.
It's unlike anything else. And so from then on, it was just a, you know, up and down, like the journey of salvation.
Mm.
A lot of me, like a lot of the brokenness in my life that night was broken in that time, like the demonic torment.
Mhm.
Never had a single like bad dream or anything like that. Like since that night. And like a lot of things in my life were totally freed in that moment.
Mm.
But a lot of it too was like a journey. It was like a, you know, the journey of salvation where I
Yeah.
have to like continue seeking God and continue walking with him to get to a place of righteousness, you know? And it was in that moment where I started like really devouring scripture
Mm.
and really entering into this quiet place with Jesus, learning more about him, like not through what other people tell me, but through just me and him telling me
Yeah.
through his word and him telling me through like prophetic words and visions and everything and like that. And yeah, skip forward, like, you know, my girlfriend at that time, she cheated on me, so it sucked.
Oh, man.
But if I didn't have Jesus, I wouldn't have been able to get over it that quickly. Because I had Jesus, like he was my advocate, he was my help in that situation. And I was like, no, like I have you,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know? It wasn't meant to be. Oh well, like I have you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I wasn't saved in that moment, it would have put me in a really dark place. But
Mhm.
Jesus is like everything, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
If
He
I
already
didn't,
told you it's gonna be all right.
exactly.
Yeah.
He'd already told me everything was going to be all right. So I knew in that moment, I'm like, dang, I feel like good. And I shouldn't feel good, but I feel good because Jesus is right next to me.
Yeah.
I knew in that moment, I'm like, I kind of want to like be with you for the rest of my life,
Right.
you know, and do whatever it takes, do whatever you call me to do.
Sure.
I don't want to work a 9 to 5. I don't want to like do this and that if it doesn't give you glory. Like I want to glorify you with my life.
Yeah.
And so I was already praying that in this next season. And then I had a friend get back from Circuit Riders, do his DTS.
Yeah.
And he was like, bro, like telling me about this discipleship training school that he did and like how he met God and how he got freed of a lot of things and how he like, you know, interceded for like Pakistan or something. He's like, I don't even know what Pakistan is. I'm like, bro, that's so cool. Like, tell me more.
Mm.
And I started hearing about Circuit Riders. I started hearing about Ywam Kona. And you know, Ywam, like there's a lot of different bases like New
Yeah.
Zealand, like Amsterdam.
They're all over the world.
But
Kona's not a bad base to be put in, though.
No.
Kona
no.
did stick out to me.
Yeah.
But I prayed into it more and I ended up going to a worship night where I met a lot of people who were staffing the upcoming Kona DTS. And I was telling them like, yeah, like I'm interested, like tell me more, you know? And they were like prophesying over me, like praying for me and like getting these random words of, what's it called? Like words of knowledge
Mhm.
that I have never told anybody. And they were like praying that over me. And I'm like, what's going on? And they were telling me like, Jesse, you're going to be evangelist to the nations. Jesse, you're going to go to this place and this place and this place and see like miraculous things from God. You're going to see healing. You're going to see salvation. And I'm like, I've never like dreamt of this before. I've never like thought of this in my wildest dreams. And it was in that moment that I went home and I was like praying. I was sobbing in my bed because I'm like, God, what's next? Like, tell me what's next. And he spoke to me. That was one of the first times he spoke to me loud and clear, not specifically through the vision,
Mhm.
but through just a voice. And
Yeah.
I just heard, Jesse, tomorrow I want you to go apply for Ywam Kona DTS.
Wow.
I was like, okay, I'll do it. Because there's no use in like wasting time being like,
No.
is that you, God? Like, be
Yeah.
like Gideon, you know, just like,
Right.
make this cloth wet
Yeah.
and then I will do it. Like,
Yeah.
no, I was like, I know that's God
That's great.
because
Yeah.
there's nothing inside of me that wants to leave the comfort of my home and go to a random country that I don't know. You know,
Sure.
yeah, I want to glorify God, but can I glorify God here? You know? But
Mm.
so I ended up applying. And this was like May. And the fall school was coming up. A lot of people apply like a year in advance. So I
Yeah.
was super late.
Yeah, it's really that Kona base, a lot of people want to go there,
Yeah.
even though there's bases all over the world. That one is, University of the Nations there. It's very popular.
Yeah.
Obviously,
It wouldn't be bad.
go hang out in
I
Kona.
mean, when you were in, DTS, how many people were in your DTS?
We had, this was 20 years ago that I did my DTS, but we were up in Discovery Bay, up in Port Townsend here in Washington. So I think there was like 30 of us, and half the team went to China and the other half we went to West Africa for our outreach phase.
Yeah.
So
actually, 30 is a lot more than I was
it was
expecting.
pretty small.
Yeah.
It was pretty small, but it was like the newest. It was the very first year that they did a DTS up at Discovery Bay.
Gotcha.
So it was a very brand new base. But yeah, they're all over the place.
In Kona, on average, they get around 300.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Just for like fire and fragrance. That's the specific DTS I did.
Yeah.
It just focuses more on like worship intercession missions. But there's other DTSs you can do. But like 300 people had signed up years in advance. And I'm like, I'm late to the party and I want to go this fall. God told me to apply for this fall.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to have faith. I pressed apply and I waited 3 days and I got a call. And it's just like, yo, bro, like you're accepted.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
I mean, the cool part about the process with Ywam is the staff, they do pray over every applicant. So it's not like random or, anything like their application is better or whatever it is. It really is. They do really pray and seek the Lord on who's supposed to be at that DTS for that season.
Yeah.
So you absolutely were.
Yeah. Yeah. And that just like, it's another reminder that when God speaks to you, don't dwell on it too long.
Yeah.
And like have faith that what he says is true and it's going to happen. Because he won't tell you something that's not going to happen. Like that's not his character. He's a promise keeper.
Yep.
So like when he told me that and I got in, like being so late, it was like almost June. It was like May 26th.
Wow.
It was like, I shouldn't have got in,
Right.
but God opened the door. He made a way. So if God tells you something, I'm talking to you. If God tells you something, like listen to him and do it.
Especially when it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the best time to listen to God.
So before we get too far into where you're going next and kind of how your journey and the sanctification process is just on fire with you, what or how were you received by your family or close friends that knew a totally different Jesse growing up?
Yeah.
And then now you're this version with Jesus, and not just like so many people know him or they get saved and there's this initial burst. And then all of a sudden you're looking around and you're like, hey, wasn't that guy volunteering here? Like, where is he? And they're not at church or she's not here. And there's kind of that fall off with a lot of people. I don't see that with you, at least not yet. Hopefully never. How have you been received? Have your relationships changed? Have you seen shifts in anyone that grew up with you, that version of you, and now they're seeing this version?
Yeah, there's definitely been a couple friends who, after I got saved, obviously I had a whole paradigm shift. And all I could see is like the gospel and Jesus loving every single person. And I like, when I said like, when I was in my brokest moment, I'm like, why didn't anybody ever tell me the gospel when I needed it?
Right.
Like that was my mindset. And like, now that I'm saved, I get to tell all my friends who don't know the gospel. And so with one of my friends, I like scheduled like to hang out. And I was just like, bro, have you ever heard the gospel? Like straight up. And he just like, he just like kind of put back up a little bit. And I got to tell him the whole gospel, but he just didn't want it. And like it kind of broke my heart a little bit because I was friends with this guy for like a long time, super long time. Back when I was a kid, we'd always used to go over to his house and hang out. And like, honestly, I haven't seen him in a year and a half, 2 years now. Half of that is my bad for not like, pursuing him. But like there are definitely relationships like that I've seen like take a step back when they like see me as like who I am now. Like, I mean, if I saw me for who I am now, like before I was saved, it's like, that guy's crazy. Like, what is he doing? I can never see my life like from when I was younger like that.
Yeah, but don't be discouraged because every single time, we talked about this with Abby, every single time that you do share the gospel or just your lifestyle, they look at you, you're planting a seed.
Exactly.
So don't be discouraged with that
Yeah.
at all.
I'm not. But it does little shots of the heart every
Sure.
time you tell the gospel and someone's like, no, it's like, okay, whatever. It is for everybody. I was
Yeah.
going to say it's not for everybody, but it is for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like for my family specifically, like after I got home from Papua New Guinea, especially, like I was like, I'm going to pursue my brother because my brother's not saved. So I was like able to like take him to church and he was like into it. And I was like, I got him a Bible and he was like in his own time, like I would walk into his room and he'd have the Bible open like on the table.
It's awesome.
So like, and he's like not 100% saved yet, but I do have faith that God will bring him into his family soon. But as for my mom specifically, and then my dad, like I'm still working on them. I'm still like, they have tons of questions for me. And like, sometimes they think I'm brainwashed. Sometimes they, are like, okay, he knows what he's talking about. But it is definitely a journey. And I have to remain steadfast and remain on the rock, because if I had any sort of wiggle room, with the people that I'm surrounded with, like, and the people that I'm trying to pursue and their discontent towards God, it would rattle me.
Well, and I think, excuse me, I think so many times too, it's so common for people just to wait for the fall off, to wait for people to be really into something and then not so much, right? I think about kids like, oh, I'm a basketball player. And then the next year they want to be a volleyball player. And the next year they want to be a cheerleader. And it's like the common thing in the world is to go from one thing to the next that makes us feel excited and good. And I think the more that you just keep staying in this and growing in that relationship with Christ, they're going to eventually have so much exposure to you and watching you from a distance that it does draw them closer and closer. And it can feel far away, but I think in the waiting is where God does so much of that good work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so I think that's incredible for you to, that's what my wife and I are trying to do with our kids, is flip that familial history of being trendsetters for Jesus, right? And like,
good.
At some point, a generation or two from now, they're not even going to know that we didn't know him, right? But it took somebody to take that step.
Yeah.
And so I think that's awesome what you're doing. It's really admirable. I think a lot of people are going to be able to learn from that too, from what we're hearing today.
Yeah.
So leading into that, what is next for you? I know you got big plans.
Yeah.
I don't want to say bigger than Kona, but maybe a little more adventurous. So what are you doing next?
Yeah. Well, I am planning on going back to Kona, and I will be staffing again. Should I talk about like staffing, like what it was like this past year? And
sure. Yeah. We would love to hear about the past when you went to Kona to staff and then your trip to Turkey.
So I staffed the DTS that I was a part of. So I did DTS. I went to Papua New Guinea. I loved it so much that I was like, all right, let me staff. Let me become a leader and lead an outreach team instead of be a student.
And let me cut you off here, just because when you had said in the very beginning about how you want to do the research yourself, you don't want to take somebody else's word for it, that just, you were born a leader.
Yeah.
So that's, as soon as you said that, I was just like, yeah, he's a leader.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm in Kona. Leadership track is like, it's meant to like, stretch you. It's meant to push you and like refine you into the leader that God has made you to be. And I learned so much, and I realized that I want to do missions for the rest of my life. Like in just leadership track, being at Kona, like delving deep into God's presence and like really allowing him to like work on my heart and things that I was dealing with. Like even after you're saved, like I feel like people don't talk about this as much, but like there's still a lot of things that people deal with, and there's always need for like surrender to God. Like once you're to a point where you're like, oh yeah, I'm saved, I'm good, and like Jesus, you're cool, but like I'm perfect. No, nobody's perfect but God. Like then you become a Pharisee, and then it's like, you gotta be careful.
It's a quick way to become lukewarm.
Exactly,
I think.
exactly. So I always try to stay like, I can know more, I can grow more. Like I'm continually surrendered. So that was like a learning moment in leadership track that like formed me to where I am right now. And basically going back, I got a heart for Turkey, burning heart actually. And I couldn't stop like praying for these people, these Muslim people.
Yeah.
Like I would see visions of people like taking off their hijabs, and like people, I would be preaching the gospel to somebody at a mosque, and they would just like, you know, like put a smile on their face, like for the first time. And I would just keep getting like a heart for these people. And I'm like, God, why are you like giving me a heart for these people in the Middle East? You know? And he would just reveal to me like the importance that even though they serve a God who cannot see and cannot hear in Muhammad and Allah, like he still loves them so much. And he still desires a relationship with them, you know? He's like, Jesse, I'm raising you up to be a messenger to those specific people.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, nobody wants to go there. Like, you watch the news, like, everybody is scared of the Middle East.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, okay, I'll do it. Being led by God's word is the best way to live. Being led by the Holy Spirit, he led me to that place. And I'm in Turkey with my team, and my team is kind of crazy. They're all so different, but we all fit together. We're different puzzle pieces, but if we were all the same piece, like we wouldn't fit, you know? Like the body of Christ works like that. If we were all like an arm, we wouldn't be able to walk. If we were all like an eye, we wouldn't be able to like smell or hear.
Really
You know, so we all like are different, but we all work together and we all create this unity in our team. And it was very beautiful to see and like learn from too, because I definitely had like a preconceived notion of what a perfect team would look like, and it was not that. So I had to adapt. And also in Turkey, ministry is like insanely opposite from what it is in Papua New Guinea. Because in Papua New Guinea, you got to be loud. You got to, you know, preach the gospel to 500 people who just stare at you. And then you'd say the name of Jesus and they get on their face like crying and weeping, and you see miraculous healing. Like I remember in Papua New Guinea, I prayed for this old woman, and like, because she had arthritis in her hands was shaking. And like I prayed, and I was just like, I'm gonna open my eyes and see, because I was like, I had faith, you know. I was like, and her veins were like glowing yellow.
Yeah.
Like, what? I've never seen this before.
So cool.
She got healed. And like going from that environment of ministry to Turkey, where everybody's, you know, quiet. You can't preach the gospel openly.
Yeah.
You can't say you're a missionary.
Yeah.
You can't say a lot of different things, because you know, risk becoming jailed, becoming blacklisted, a lot of bad things, you know?
Yeah.
Because their government is controlled by Muslim, like it's Muslim.
Right.
So they're very extremist against Christians. But what we found out is that everybody's so open, especially the young people. Like we were preaching the gospel throughout evangelism, just like one-on-one. Like we would go out and just meet people in coffee shops. We would go to like mosques and just be like, hey, like I see you over here. Like, you know, what does believing in Muhammad, believing in Allah mean to you? Like, do you find purpose in that? You know, we ask them a lot of questions to like get them to a place where they're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Or like even just building a friendship with them. Like I remember I sat with this one guy for an hour, and he just like started like venting to me on how bad the, you know, economy is and this and this and this. And I just listened to him. I didn't bring up Jesus one time in that conversation, because I know what he needed was a friend to talk to about his struggles, you know? And it was finally after an hour, I was like, bro, I was in the same position as you. But the thing that changed my life, he's like, what changed your life? I'm like, bro, Jesus. Have you ever heard of him? And he's just like, oh, the prophet Jesus. I'm like, no, the God. Jesus, the God. And there were so many opportunities. Like we were helping out at soup kitchens. We were helping out at schools. We were doing evangelism in the streets, the busy streets of Turkey, in Istanbul and in Antioch. And we were just seeing miraculous things. Like we saw healings. We saw 6 people come to know Jesus, including a man from Turkmenistan.
You want to tell that story? Because we're actually going to be linking his video on the testimony of this story that he's about to tell us in the description below. So check it out. But let's hear what Jesse has to say about this guy, Matthew.
So this was the craziest testimony
Very cool.
that I have in my life up to this moment. It's like, this is the one reason we went to Turkey, I feel like. We found the one. His name was Hamet when we met him. And we were helping out at a soup kitchen. And initially we were like talking with the group about God. So in the soup kitchen, a little backstory, we can't tell like homeless people about the gospel because they've had some crazy encounters in the past. But everybody who comes to help out at the soup kitchen, like college kids who are looking for an extra credit, for like a volunteer credit, like we can talk to them about God.
Okay.
So we were talking to a lot of the volunteers in this circle, like, what does God mean to you? Like, who do you have faith in? Like, what is the meaning of life? And we saw this guy who was like kind of backing away from the circle. And so 2 of my boys go over and start talking to him. They're just like, yo, bro, like, I saw you back away from the circle. What's going on? He's like, they're talking to God. They're talking about God. I don't want to talk about that. Like, that was initially like, a closed door in the face. And any lukewarm Christian would have been like, okay, see ya. But like, my boys had they had boldness, they had faith, and they were just like, oh, but like, what does God mean to you? And they started asking him questions, and like, this guy Hamet, he was just, being vulnerable, like straight up. And they're just like, whoa, this guy's like randomly so open. And they were just like, have you ever heard the gospel before? He's like, no. Hamet was born in Turkmenistan, grew up in Turkmenistan under very extremist Muslim parents for 5 or 6 years, and was able to leave Turkmenistan at such a young age and get to Turkey. So he's been through a lot of trauma in his life through like religion, and like all of this, like extremist Muslims are so like religious, and you have to do this and this and this and this and this to achieve salvation, to achieve righteousness,
Right.
And so when we were telling him the gospel, this gospel of love, this gospel of not works but faith, this gospel of Jesus as a relationship with us, like it was just breaking down his walls one by one by one by one. And he like, you could see him start to smile and start to like laugh and start to like ask deep questions because he wanted to know. And you could see that his faith was stirred in that moment. And the whole gospel was shared. And he was like, I want to know more. I'm hungry for this. He said that. He's like, I'm hungry for this.
Wow.
And my boy Joe was like, bro, do you want to go get coffee tomorrow morning? And he's just like, yes. Because that's just what you do in Turkey. You go get chai, you go get Turkish coffee, and you just meet people.
Yeah.
You talk, and you could talk for 20 minutes or 2 hours. Could be anything like that. So Joe goes and meets Hamet at this coffee shop, and he brings his Bible, and he's just like showing Hamet different Bible verses. He's like, the things I'm telling you are not just from me. Like, there's this holy book called the Bible, and it's in here. He's like, yeah, I've heard of the Bible. But in Muslim like culture, those books are seen as holy. Like, they don't want to get anywhere near it because they're unclean. They're seen as unclean. They themselves think they're unclean. In the eyes of Allah, they're just like, no, like they have to take their shoes off before they go into the mosque. So how much more is the book that God like wrote,
Right.
And they see the Bible as also the word of God. So it's interesting, like, I don't want to get into apologetics, but it's interesting when you like try to debate them where it's like, oh, but this like contradicts the Quran. They're just like, no. But anyways.
Wait, question. Are they even allowed to really study the Quran? Because they just go to the mosques to learn about it. So it's just what they're hearing, not something that they're actually studying.
Yeah. I mean, there's no laws against like, you can't study it.
Right.
But their morality and their culture is like, it's too holy for me.
Okay.
Quran
I'm
is
not
like
good enough.
an oral tradition.
Right. Okay.
So that's like whatever's like sung or like spoken in the mosque is usually what they get. And they just pray that 5 times a day.
Okay.
Like, Muhammad this, Muhammad that. But like they don't really search for themselves because it's like a religion. Most of them are religious in Islam because of their culture, because of the family that they grew up with, because of the surrounding area, and just the influence that Islam has on that nation.
Yeah.
So not a lot of them like actually even know. Like they're just like, yo, like I'm like, bro, like, do you know if you're gonna go to heaven? And they're just like, no, I don't know.
Right.
It's like, have you like studied anything about the Quran? They're just like, no.
Do you want to know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, I have like good news. I have the gospel. And that's what hit Hamet really hard. It's like Joe brought his Bible. And I mean, if you guys watch the video, like you'll see, like we didn't touch on it that much and Hamet didn't touch on it that much, but he's talking about like Joe brought his Bible and he like lights up. He's like, the Bible, because they even see the Bible too as this holy book that they're like, he's like, can I read it? Like going through this Bible, Joe's like showing him different Bible verses and like, bro, like you see like here, like you can talk to God. See here, you can like have a relationship with him. See here, you can encounter God. And you're just like, what? Like, I want that. Like, I want to encounter God. I want to encounter Jesus. And so at that point, it was just a really easy segue to let's get you saved,
Right.
So Joe walks him through this prayer and he's just like, bro, like, just ask God, like, what he thinks about you. Ask God to reveal himself to you. And Hamet describes this feeling that he gets, this buzzing in the back of his head. And to him, it was like this crazy encounter that he's never felt before.
Sure.
And like, that was just the kicker. And he's just like, I need to know more. And he's like, what is this? Like, what was that? I mean, I would be asking the same question. Like, if I was shaking in church, I'm like, what the freak is going on? You know?
Yeah.
Right.
Joe led him through the salvation prayer, and he was just like, yes, I believe, I believe, I believe. And after that moment, it was Sunday, so we got to go to church.
Yeah.
And like first worship song, Hamet already has his hands like up.
Wow.
We're just like, what is going on? Like this guy has such childlike faith. He's never heard the gospel before.
Hey, it kind of reminds me of you. Your story.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I took a lot more than one day.
But
to,
you know what I mean? Like,
But-
very similar. Yeah.
So Hamet was like just wild. Like,
yeah.
and he goes home that night, and we're, obviously all of us are praying for him. And he goes home that night, and he's got like crazy studies and finals that is like stressing him out. So he like takes a nap, and he's like, he comes to us another day later. He's like, guys, I had a dream, and this dream, like there was a guy walking with me in this like very crowded place in this like chaotic environment, but like there was this guy walking with me, and like I knew him, he knew me, but like I didn't really know him, but like I recognize him. Like he's like, who is that? And I'm like, bro, I think that's Jesus.
Mhm.
He's like, yeah, okay. And we're like, I'm looking at Andre, one of my students. I'm like, this guy's getting dreams about Jesus like a week after meeting Jesus. And I asked him after that, I'm like, bro, like, what have you been reading in the Bible? Like, what's kind of sticking out to you? Do you have any questions? Obviously, like, I want to know, I want to be able to be a discipler for this guy. And he's just like, I think I want to get baptized. We're like, yes, bro.
Cool.
Like, we came into
awesome.
Turkey, backstory, the Turkey team that went the year before us through Ywam Kona, they didn't see a salvation. And it wasn't because we were doing more than them. It wasn't because like anything like that. Like, they were just in the season of scattering seeds, and we were in the season of reaping. So we are like, what's the word? Expectation was that we might see a salvation.
Sure.
We might see a healing, Baptism was like out of the question. Like,
Sure.
you could say we didn't have a lot of faith, whatever. But like we did not, like in Kona we were praying, like we didn't have any idea that someone would get baptized in Turkey. But here we are, one salvation in, and this guy wants to like fully dedicate his life to Jesus, fully surrender, become like put the old man away and become a new man, And so we're like, bro, like let's freaking do it, let's go baptize him.
Yeah.
We're try to find places where like, dude, we could like baptize you in the bathtub or like maybe a pool. And he's just like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. And because we don't want to do it in public, because we risk like being seen, because
Right.
baptism is like, preaching the gospel is one thing, but like baptism is crazy.
Yeah.
For a Turkish person, for even a person of Middle Eastern origin, is like conversion, like you got to be careful.
Yeah.
But initially we figured, let's just drive up to the Black Sea and do it there. It wasn't that far of a bus ride, it was maybe like an hour bus ride. And Matt's like, let's do it. So we go up to the Black Sea, we walk in that freezing cold water, we dunk him, and we get out of the water, everybody's screaming, everybody's like, like, 'cause Hamet just got new life, and he turns to us, he's just like, my name is now Matthew. Call me Matthew now.
Oh, wow.
He's not that's
Yeah.
my Christian name.
Wow.
He's like, I'm no longer that person I just was. He's like, I'm different and I feel different. And my new Christian name is Matthew. We're like, dang, that's so crazy. And we're like getting out of the water. We're all like changing. And there's this like abandoned house next to the Black Sea that we're like going into and changing and like coming out. And Hamet goes into this abandoned house, and we turn to the left, and 5 policemen come walking down the boardwalk towards us. And we're just like, oh, shoot, we just baptized Hamet, and now he's in the abandoned house.
Somebody saw us.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
this is like worst case scenario. But then they just walk by,
Wow.
no word. I knew for a fact that they saw us baptize him, and I knew for a fact that they saw us go into that abandoned house. But God protected us.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
God just like, I don't know if he blinded them or just was like, yeah,
Changed
it's fine.
their minds.
Changed their
Yeah.
minds. Like, everything was good. And throughout our whole time in Turkey, like, we had so many opportunities to be passive. We had so many opportunities to like not tell people the gospel because we were tired, we were sick, we were all of these things, but like, or we were afraid of like getting caught,
Right.
Like, God gave us boldness, and he gave us protection and faith to see crazier things than that. Yeah. And then now we're in Antioch, and we're telling people the gospel. We got to share the whole gospel in a classroom to high schoolers. In
Wow.
Turkey, you can't tell anybody under the age of 18 the gospel. So that opportunity was just insane.
Yeah.
And there was like 20 high schoolers in that room that heard the whole gospel. So that was awesome. And yeah, we in Turkey in total, we got to see 6 people come to know Jesus, Syrian refugees, Turkish people, and the guy from Turkmenistan, Matthew.
Praise God.
I do feel like a long-term calling to that specific area. I don't know whether
Yeah.
it's Turkey or whether it's Middle East, Central Asia, somewhere around there.
Sure.
Turkey's
Yeah.
kind of centralized, but
Yeah.
That kind of brings us back to that last question
Yeah.
that Bo asked you is, what's next? Like, what do you see moving forward in your life? Like, what are your
Yeah.
dreams for your future?
well, I definitely want to stay in missions. I definitely want to continue being obedient to God's calling and continue having faith that He will provide in all the aspects of my life. Because I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to work a 9 to 5. I don't
Yeah.
want to be stuck in Gig Harbor, Washington for the rest of my life, because there's people, and I know that there's 4.3 billion people who have never heard the gospel before.
Right.
Yeah.
These are called unreached people.
Mm-hmm.
And that statistic breaks my heart, because these are people who are worshiping false idols, who are stuck in animalistic, faiths where they're going to the witch doctor for healing and they're not getting healing. They're like, why am I not getting healed? There's people who are praying to a God that cannot see or hear them, and they're just like, why am I so depressed? Why is I'm doing everything right in my religion, but it doesn't feel like God is like hearing me? It's because He's not, And I want to be able to, use the legs that God has given me, use my voice that God has given me, and go to those places and tell those people, whether it's the hardest and darkest place, like whether it's like the tips of the mountains in Nepal, or whether it's the like shadowy areas of Kenya. Like those places are pretty dark sometimes. A lot of spiritual stuff over there. Like I will go, and I've laid down my life to do that. And I don't know where God is sending me this next season.
Yeah.
I love everywhere. Like I will go anywhere. I'll do anything. It's like that song, I'll go anywhere, I'll do anything, put me where you want me, God.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to go where God wants me, because He's already paved a way for me to go.
Yeah.
But I just have to be obedient, have faith
Sure.
to go to those places.
So as we get out of here and we wrap this up a little bit, there's got to be at least one person listening to you saying, okay, I think I want that. There's got to be a lot more saying, man, I wonder if I could do something like that. How do they get in contact with the organization, with Ywam? What's the best resource that you would recommend someone to reach out to just to get a little bit more to maybe fuel the fire they might be feeling?
Yeah. Well, there's so many opportunities with missions you can do. It doesn't have to be just Ywam. Ywam is a launch pad to the nations. So is Circuit Riders. There's a lot of different DTSs that are popping up around the world that you can go to. It's not just Kona. There's one in New Zealand. There's one in Amsterdam. There's one in South Africa. There's so many opportunities. There's probably one in your hometown. But you can go to ywamkona.org. You can go to just ywam.org, or it's like ywam.com or something like that. Just look up Ywam. Just look up Circuit Riders. Look up like discipleship training school, and like really do your research on like which may be the best one for you. If you feel a calling to missions, if you feel a calling to just even learn about God more, not necessarily like you want to devote your life to missions in the unreached places of the world. Like if you just want to learn about Jesus more, like you've been a Christian your whole life, you've read the whole Bible, but you still have questions. You still want to experience like what God and being in His presence truly is like learn about maybe partnering with a DTS, maybe like, spending a season, like maybe you just graduated high school, like take a gap year. Like, we're young, like we're so young. Like I'm 23, about to turn 24.
He's so young.
I know
I don't regret it at all. I don't regret like taking the youth of my life and giving everything I have to Jesus, because it will pave the way for the rest of my life. And for you, if you're being led to this next step, like pray about it, ask God His guidance, and like don't make a decision, any decision in your life. Like this just goes for anything, not just specifically like missions related or like DTS. Like don't make any decision that is not from God's like leading you in that direction. Like don't make a decision out of your own heart. Make a decision from what God is already leading you into. So pray about everything. It says in the Bible, pray without ceasing, right? Pray with every breath that you have, and allow God to speak to you and discern whether it's His voice or your voice, and like really just spend more time in the quiet place, spend more time in worship and intercessory prayer, because there are people in the nations who have to hear the gospel, because if they don't hear the gospel, they're not going to go to heaven. And that's
Yeah.
a reality that we have to accept. So,
Well,
yeah.
I'm super excited. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here, man. We'll be praying hard for you to just keep being blessed and favored and protected.
Yeah.
And we're excited to have you back after this next Turkey trip and hear all about it.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
We're excited to PLC Peninsula Life Church. We actually sponsor you as one of our missionaries. But if anyone else wants to sponsor you as a missionary, because with YWAM, Youth with a Mission, you have to raise your own support.
Yeah.
So how can they contact you or to support you?
Yeah. I have an EquipNet page. There's this website called EquipNet. You can go on. It's called EquipNet. I think it's just, you can just look up my name, Jesse Girth,
Okay.
and I should have a page set up. You can email me at jessedgirth@gmail.com. And I can send you my newsletter. I have a newsletter from Turkey and a newsletter about kind of what it looks like from a DTS, from a mission trip, and kind of like how to support me on that basis. Because at YWAM, like I don't have a job. I don't have time to like get a job. Like that's like when I'm here, I just got home from work. Like I work a lot when I'm here.
Right.
But when I'm there, like I don't have any means of like getting money. Like there has to be some way for me to like get to these places. Like plane tickets aren't cheap. Like living off like, you know, the land in Papua New Guinea, like you still need some money. So it's like, there's like, I've been praying so hard about provision. I have faith that God will provide. And if you feel led to partner with a missionary, like I would love to partner with you and tell you everything God is doing in the nations. So
That's awesome.
email me. You can even text me 253-432-3927. And and then my EquipNet too. So
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody watching for joining us. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show. You can check us out on YouTube and all major platforms. And stay tuned for episode 4 coming up soon.
Yeah.
Jesse, thank you, man. Appreciate
Thank
your
you
time.
so much. Super proud of you. Keep going, man.
thanks, guys.
Yeah.